The time has arrived and Formula 1 is here, as cars take to the track in Bahrain once again on Friday this week. So I thought I'd look forward to the upcoming season and share my 5 reasons why I'm looking forward to the 2021 F1 season. Let's have a look. My name's Andy and this is Behind the Drive. Number 1. The midfield battle. As with 2020, the midfield battle is going to be incredible this season. Looking at the media predictions of the order of the constructors after testing, and the teams between 3rd and 7th in the championship are vastly different in all of their predictions. It's great to see. One of the reasons I watch Formula 1 is because of the unknowns and the unpredictability, and whilst the last 7 years have been somewhat dominant at the front, the midfield is anything but decided. McLaren, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Alpine and AlphaTauri all look better than they did at this point last year. And there are a huge number of points up for grabs, and each of those teams were able to take podiums last year, remember. In particular, following testing, it's AlphaTauri, the team that ended up 7th in the championship last year, that does look incredibly strong this year compared to last year. With the new Honda power unit that was brought forward from 2022, the car certainly at the Bahrain circuit at least looks ready to compete and seems like they've taken a step forward in this season, recovering the downforce losses of the new regulations. Any one of the teams that I've mentioned here could be the best of the rest at different circuits throughout the 2021 season, and I cannot wait to see who comes out on top and how it develops through the season. Number 2. The end of a current era of regulations. 2021 represents the end of a current era of regulations, and if there's one thing that we can work out from regulations in the past, it's when they stay the same or similar for a number of years, the final season tends to be the most competitive. When there's a significant change in regulations, from either an aerodynamic or power unit perspective, the field tends to be more spread out, with less competitive racing in that first season. So therefore, looking at this season, we can expect there to be a highly competitive championship up and down the grid. The unique point this year though, is that it wasn't meant to be the end of the regulations. This year's cars are an evolution on last year's, which were designed to be cars that would be developed over the course of a single season. So given last year was such a good year with the fight for 3rd position in the championship going right down to the wire at the last race, it makes me think that this year could be the closest championship in a very long time. And then you have the other side of the coin, and the fact that the 2022 regulations represent a huge change for the aerodynamic principles of the cars. The intention is to make racing more competitive, as the current cars have a huge issue when following another car, making overtaking challenging at the best of times. Alongside these new technical regulations though, there's the new budget cap, which represents the sport's first ever financial regulations. These are being brought in for this season and adds a new complication to the development of both the 2021 car and the 2022 car. Teams did start the development of their 2021 cars in the first part of last year, but the FIA put a stop to any further development of aerodynamic parts intended for the 2022 cars until January of this year. This means that the teams will have a huge amount of work to do behind the scenes this year to develop their 2022 challenges. Already, Haas have come out to say that they will be 100% focused on developing next year's cars and have written off this year's championship. It will be an interesting talking point throughout 2021 to see the development race between the teams, and those that overdevelop in 2021 could well find themselves on the back foot for 2022. So this year could really be a tactical battle between all of the teams off track. Number 3. The new driver pairings. Going into 2021, a whopping 7 of the 10 teams have changed their driver lineups this season. It's rare to have such a change to the drivers, and it's something that I'm really looking forward to. So many of these driver changes could create teammate battles that change the dynamic at the teams altogether. There are too many changes to look at them all in this video, but I'm going to mention 3 that I'm particularly looking forward to the most. For starters, we have Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. Now this driver pairing is well and truly in the spotlight. Not only are they at a McLaren team that achieved 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship last year, but they're also expected to be the next Sainz-Norris type partnership, with the pair both being big personalities within the paddock. But the early signs show that both of these drivers are looking to be top dog at the McLaren team. At the launch, Norris publicly said that when he made his Formula 1 debut in 2019, he was a bit of a yes man, learning as much as he could from his more experienced teammate in Carlos Sainz. But this year, he stated that he wants to be the best and the lead driver for McLaren. Now this is a tall order at the best of times in Formula 1, but given he's now up against a 7-time race winner in Daniel Ricciardo, it will be all the more difficult in 2021. Meanwhile, Ricciardo himself is a driver that tends to dominate his teammates. This was the driver that came into the Red Bull team and beat Sebastian Vettel in 2014. And since then, he's comfortably beaten Nico Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon at Renault, and the competition was split one apiece during his 2 full seasons against Max Verstappen at Red Bull. So the McLaren pair look like they could be in for a great battle this season. My next driver pairing pick has to be the pair at Red Bull. The second seat at Red Bull has been so volatile for such a long period of time, ever since Daniel Ricciardo left the team at the end of 2018. The team have been struggling to find a teammate who can come anywhere close to the levels of Max Verstappen. The team have tried 2 drivers so far, in Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon, but this year the team have looked outside their driver academy for the first time in a number of years. This year though, they have Sergio Perez, a driver that has a vast amount of experience in the sport already and is now of course a race winner. His experience could be crucial to offer any competition with Verstappen this year, and following testing, he looks really comfortable in the car already. Given how good that Red Bull car looks, a point that I'll get onto later, he could well find himself in a car that's capable of getting on the podium at each and every race for the first time in his career. I can't wait to see how he gets on with the psychological and on-track rivalry with Verstappen this year, and whether they could take the fight to Mercedes. And the final rivalry I want to look at is the teammate pairing at Alpine, and the return to the grid for Fernando Alonso. Alonso is one of the most successful drivers in Formula 1 history, but he achieved his 2 world championships over 15 years ago. Will Alonso be able to compete at the highest level once again? From the early signs in testing, he looks ready and raring to go, even with his cycling accident that he suffered earlier this year. He could be as quick as he ever was, which could well become a challenge for his new teammate in Esteban Ocon. Ocon himself is a driver that had a tough year last year. After being dropped from Racing Point for the 2019 season, the Frenchman's confidence of course did take a hit. And coming into the Renault outfit for 2020, it was quite clear early on that he wasn't able to compete with Ricciardo. Ocon did improve through the season and achieved a podium at the Sakir Grand Prix towards the end of the year, so he'll be looking to keep these performances up for 2021 against Fernando Alonso. Number 4, the Backmarkers shake-up. My next point to look at is the Backmarkers of Formula 1. For a while now, the back 3 teams have been Alfa Romeo, Haas and Williams. I don't think that will change, as they were just too far away last year to have really made a difference going into this season. But there's a real chance that the order of these 3 could change this year. As I mentioned earlier, Haas have already said that they won't develop their 2021 car this season. It makes sense that both Alfa Romeo and Williams will probably make the switch to focus on 2022 early on this season as well. But already from the early signs in testing, it looks like the order may have changed. Alfa Romeo had a very strong test, running the joint most laps over 3 days in Bahrain. Both drivers looked comfortable in the car and seemed very happy with where the team's at going into the first race of the season. Haas also showed good running as well, albeit with a couple of failures across the testing sessions. But whether the pace is there in that car still remains a question. Then you have Williams, and this team is well set to make their way back up the grid this year in my opinion. They've got a new team ownership model, a new CEO in Jos Capito, and they look well set going into 2020 to score their first points since the 2019 German Grand Prix. The team have been reporting that they focus their efforts down a development path that will likely mean they're susceptible to windy conditions, so really looking to peak at just a few different races in 2021. And while the back teams may not get much coverage, the battle between them in 2021 could well be closer than it has been over the last few years. Number 5, the championship fight. Then finally, the last reason that I'm looking forward to the 2021 season must be the championship fight. And I've added a question mark to this subtitle as I still have doubts over whether it will happen. Following testing, it looks like there's a genuine possibility that there could be a non-Mercedes championship victory for the first time in either the Drivers' or Constructors' Championship since 2013. The Red Bull looks like the best car on the grid so far, and of course this isn't the first time that this has been predicted since 2013, but the Mercedes cars just don't look great going into the 2021 season. There are a combination of factors. There's the fact that the impact of the new floor regulations seem to reflect the lower rate cars more than the higher rate cars, the new Honda power unit that was due to arrive for 2022 but was developed sooner, and the fact that by the looks of things, Red Bull now have 2 drivers that can compete, as I mentioned earlier. And then even if the Mercedes team do end up being dominant once again, there's every chance of a battle within the Silver Arrows this year. The Mercedes car does not look planted at the rear end, and it was Lewis that seemed to struggle more during the 3 days in Bahrain. Now, of course, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Bottas is better than Hamilton all of a sudden, but Lewis doesn't tend to make many mistakes, and he made quite a few in Bahrain during testing. But if that car is a handful in 2021, it could well open up the door. Either way, whether it's Red Bull competing with the Mercedes or the battle between the drivers themselves, I'm massively looking forward to what happens at the front this year. So that's my 5 reasons why I'm looking forward to the 2021 season. What are you looking forward to seeing in 2021? Let me know in the comment section, and as always, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to Behind the Drive for more F1 content just like this throughout the 2021 season.